I've been a skier and a hiker. I have led a lot of the guide trainings. I've been on the board in different leadership positions, and I found it very interesting to get to know all kinds of different blind and visually impaired people, all kinds of different people who guided. I love creating partnerships. And so anything that gives me an opportunity to create a partnership like the guiding is great. And my friends can only do so much guiding me, so I've been very grateful to have the opportunities to go up to the mountains and ski with people and try things and perfect techniques, and am really grateful to be helping out and want to make sure that it continues and that other visually impaired people get the same opportunities I had. So that's sort of my deal. I live in San Francisco, and I do some work in radio. I do a lot of singing and choruses and whatnot, and have a counseling practice and all sorts of fun stuff. So.
And I will tell you that Vicki has a voice to die for. Her I was at one event where we sat around and Vicki did some singing, and oh my gosh.
Thank you.
You can sing for me anytime, Vicki.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to call on Patty and Tom next because I recruited them from my church.
All right.
They're avid hikers and bikers and just really great people. So Patty and Tom.
Hi, well, Vicki, you can't see us right now, but Tom and I are sitting together, and I'm telling you, it looks like a mug shot for both of us staring at the computer. I don't know. We've never done this before, but as Edie said, we love to hike, we love to bike. I don't ski, Tom does. And hopefully we love to make new friends. So we're looking forward to meeting you and some other people.
Patty mentioned that I ski, but I've never cross-country skied.
Yes.
Only downhill skiing. So I'm not familiar with leading any group of blind people doing anything, even one blind person doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking forward to the experience.
And you guys do snowshoe, right?
I do. Yes, we both do.
Maybe we can recruit you in the winter.
Yes, we do snowshoe. We kayak today.
Wow.
It was a little windy coming back to the west.
Where did you kayak?
Down a lake.
Down a lake.
Oh, that can get real windy in the afternoon.
Wow.
It was.
And Arlene, I've only met you, I think, once or twice, Arlene. Arlene's fairly new to Ski for Light, mostly as a volunteer, and I think you've snowshoe guided. So Arlene, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I ski downhill and cross country and hike and kayak, and with Ski for Light, I've just, I think, done one season, maybe two. I remember the Truckee weekend with skiing. So yeah, COVID interrupted a whole lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, Arlene, that weekend, it was like 3 or 4 or 5 days before the stay-at-home order came in. I mean, we just squeaked in with that 3-day weekend in March.
Right. Yeah, that was right before the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Jean is our treasurer. She's the money person. So.
And a whole lot more.
I think am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm Jean Snuggs, and I try to keep track of the money. No. And I've been helping with the Ski for Light since I think for 10 years now. And I'm an old physical education teacher coach, and it's really fun for me actually to especially teach someone a new skill and to teach them how to ski. And it's incredibly it's challenging, and it's really rewarding, and I have been really pleased to be involved in it. I've been able to go to the international event a couple of times. And I can just tell you that our little region does a really good job in terms of what our trips are like and what our days are like. And it is it's a real pleasure But anyway, I am certain that I get as much, if not more, out of it than any of the visually impaired that I've ever helped. And it's incredibly rewarding. And anyway, I'm glad we're getting together now. You know, we've missed for 2 years being able to get together to go skiing. And hopefully this event will give us a little boost and we'll get a few new people involved and we can carry on with that when we get into the cross-country ski season. So I'm glad to be here. So thank you. Look forward to it.
Have you, and don't kid yourself, Jean does a great job of keeping track of our money.
I keep hoping she'll find extra she can send my way, but
I'm gonna call on John now. John has been around Ski for Light way longer than I have, I know. First, I think he was a guide at one point, and he's been a great volunteer for many years. So John, tell us about yourself.
Hello,
We hear
I've been here since the beginning for Ski for Light, and even prior to that with the visually impaired and with ICO, which was a Sierra Club group. I got started doing this because if I take out my contacts or take my glasses off, I've got 2,200, you know, so I'm legally blind. So since I'm not, I wanted to share at least what I could see with people who saw less. So that's basically my story. And I have not guided for a long time because of some injuries, but still hung on and do volunteer work at the hotel, at the dinner, etc.
And when we were going to have the 3-day ski event that we had to cancel for COVID, we didn't know what we were going to do without you when you said you couldn't come.
I cannot imagine an event without you, John.
Your volunteering is so important. So, and Kathy, last but not least, unless somebody else pops on the screen, Kathy's newer than some of us, but has been around for a few years.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been. I'm Kathy Campbell, and I am a retired speech therapist. And I have been involved with Ski for Light maybe 2017. I think I have participated in three-day events. Oh, I'm not sure about that, but I was definitely there at the last one, right before COVID. And I got started because I'm a friend of Betsy's from our Sertoma Club. And I started giving rides to the skiers, picking people up at the airport and the train station. And then I started joining in with the pizza parties and getting to know people. And I thought, hey, I'd like to be part of this. And so here I am. I'm very happy to be part of this. Just a wonderful, wonderful group of people.
Very glad to have Kathy. Tom and Patty, it looks like you're the only ones brand new to us, but believe me, you're going to get hooked. I think the first dinner that we went to, and I saw that you guys signed up for, did you sign up for both the dinners or one?
Just one.
One of them?
Yes.
Okay. I got hooked the first dinner I went to when some fellow got up, and I'm not sure his name, and said, you guides don't realize what you do. For some of us, when the darkness is slowly closing in, you give us a reason for living. And I teared up, and I've never forgotten what he said. And I thought, I'm not that important to some of the blind and visually impaired hikers and skiers, but to others I am. And to think that you could bring that much to somebody that was a hooker for me. I was hooked. So Vicki, do you want to share just a little bit of the history of Ski for Light? Some of us, I know John's very familiar with it.
John probably knows it better than I do. But the very brief nutshell history is that this Ski for Light started in Norway. And Norway has a great skiing program for all kinds of blind and disabled people. And in 1975, one of the Norwegians who'd been with that program had moved here, had come here and decided to start something in the US. So he started a national program. We sort of call it international because they get people from everywhere, but it's national. And they meet once a year in different locations around the states. And it started as a race program, cross-country ski racing, but very quickly turned into a recreational event. And as it progressed, it got so popular that a lot of people, including our own Betsy Rell, decided to start regional affiliates. And we are one of 9 regional affiliates. And it was officially incorporated in 1993, I think it was. So there had been things that Betsy did before, like John mentioned inner city outings as part of Sierra Club. So people have been guiding visually impaired people in cross-country skiing for a long time. My friends just taught me as a lark. But since 1993, we've been going every year except, the COVID years and a couple of non-snow years when we had to cancel, mostly up to Tahoe Donner. And we've done day trips. For a while, we had a junior ski guide program where we taught some high school, mostly ski racers, to guide, and they guided some of the younger visually impaired people who came on day trips. And we've progressed from skiing to include snowshoeing. And then in 2013, I decided that we needed to do a hiking program. And so I started doing a hiking program in the summer just to add to the fun and to the work a little bit. And we're always a little bit in transition, and as we come out of COVID, hopefully, and we have new people, we'll see how it continues to unfold. So I'm really glad to have you all a part of it, whether you're doing a refresher, hanging out, contributing your wisdom, or here for the first time. But that's basically who we are, and the motto from Ski for Light is, if I can do this, I can do anything. And so the idea is to promote independence, to promote partnership and communication, to open blind people to the outdoors. Many blind people don't have the kind of transportation or setup that allows them to get out. And so that is the basis of this. So encouraging and fostering independence, relationship, communication. So we do have a lot of fun. That seems to be a prerequisite. Fun must be had. And so here we are.
We're going to start off our little training, and it's going to be a good refresher for me too, because we haven't met for a couple of years. There's a new sighted guide video out. When I trained, and until a few years ago, we used an old one that was such poor resolution. It was pretty sad, but it gave you a lot of good cues. But there is something to, and it isn't actually about being on a hiking trail or skiing trail. It's about walking, getting around town. But many of the things you'll use during the weekend, both on the hiking trail and in helping visually impaired people at our dinners and going to the restrooms and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen now and say a little prayer that the video decides to start. Yeah.
Yep. Well, yes.
People to know is a technique for walking with another.
The sound
person
is a
called
little low, but I
sighted
think
guide
I've got it all
or
the way
human
up.
guide.
Yeah.
For this video, I will call it the more traditional term, sighted guide.
GPS will come out with information button, meeting button, original sound now. Let's rock on the button, select the mic button, view.
For this video, you
All day.
and your companion is the person who is blind or visually impaired and requesting assistance. Sighted guide technique allows both people on the sighted guide team to feel comfortable, safe, and actively walking together. So, how does it work? First, don't assume someone who is blind or visually impaired needs a guide. Ask, would you like me to guide you? If the answer is yes, touch the back of your companion's hand with the back of your hand and let them follow your arm up to the elbow. They should hold on to the back of your elbow with their hand in the shape of the letter C, like they would if holding a cup. If your companion needs more support, then it's okay for them to link arms with you. You and your companion should walk almost beside each other, while you stay a half a step to a step ahead. Most of the time, you will maintain this position. You should keep your arms steady and locked comfortably by your side. Your companion should stay close to you. The sighted guide team should walk at a pace that is comfortable for both people. While walking, go ahead and have a conversation using special verbal cues for guidance only when needed. If your companion is very new to vision loss, appears anxious, is using a modified grasp, or expresses curiosity about the surroundings, give them more detail about the environment and provide extra verbal cues to help anticipate obstacles. An experienced team will not need much verbal cueing and will rely more on physical cues. When you approach a narrow path, or need to walk through a crowd, or go through a door, bring your arm behind your back to cue your companion to line up single file. It's okay for your companion to let their hands slide down from the elbow to the wrist to allow more room for walking. At the end of the narrow space, bring your arm back to your side to resume walking in a basic sighted guide position. When you approach a seat from the front, approach the front edge of the seat squarely. Bring your companion's legs up to the seat of the chair until their legs touch it. Most people should be able to seat themselves at this point. In special situations, when extra assistance is needed, watch to make sure the seat is clear and say something only if your companion's safety is clearly at risk. When approaching a seat at a table, approach the chair squarely from behind. Place your hand on the back of the chair and allow your companion to follow your arm down to the back of the seat. Again, most people should be able to seat themselves at this point. Remember, only if special assistance is clearly needed, give simple verbal information. When you approach a curve, stop at the top or bottom as square to the curb as possible. Allow your companion to catch up to you. Take a clear, deliberate step and, this is important, keep your guiding arm locked by your side. This gives clear information to your companion about the height of the step. Stop for a moment to allow your companion to catch up with you, then keep walking in the usual sighted guide position. Stairs are similar to a curve. Stop at the top or bottom squarely. Allow your companion to catch up with you. Make sure your companion can grab the railing if one is available. As you go up or down the stairs, stay one step ahead of your companion. Again, except in special circumstances, keep your arm locked by your side. Stop at the end of the stairs and allow your companion to catch up. Then keep walking as usual. Describe the steps if they are unusual. It's okay to mention if there are a few or many steps. Do not count the number of steps, as this is distracting and not the safest practice. About face is a great technique for tight spaces like narrow hallways or elevators. You and your companion simply face each other and initiate a sighted guide grip with the opposite hand while turning yourself 180 degrees in that small space. You initiate the grip with the touch on the back of the hand, just as before. For doorways, just as with all other sighted guide skills, the guide always goes first. You will open the door, bring your arm behind your back in a narrow passageway position, and walk through the door with your companion, who should be ready to take the door and close it behind the team. You can give verbal cues, such as, the door opens toward us. The door is on our left side. It's easier and safer to keep a car door closed when you approach it with your companion. Place your hand on the handle and allow them to follow your arm to the handle. At that point, your companion can open the door to the car and get in on their own. In special circumstances, more verbal assistance may be needed. Please do make sure the seat is clear. So today we showed you how to use sighted guide technique with your friend, family member, colleague, patient, student, stranger, anyone you know who is blind or visually impaired and would like to walk with you. Sighted guide technique can be used anywhere you want to go. Here are the most important things to remember. The person you are guiding should hold on to the back of the elbow like they're holding a cup. You, the guide, always go first, through doorways, up and down stairs, etc. Never grab, push, pull, or otherwise physically manipulate the person you are guiding. Thank you for taking the time to learn sighted guide or human guide techniques today. Please share this information widely. And please refer anyone you know who has experienced vision loss to a local agency that has a certified orientation and mobility specialist on staff.
Stop share. Wow, I had forgotten some of those things.
Menu closed.
It's been a long 2 years. Oh, does anybody?
There's one I don't understand at all.
You know more about being sighted guided than any of us do, so.
Meeting information, button, meeting information. Button, lift button, view it, currently live it, okay.
Are there any questions from the video? Did it kind of make you think about something? Any questions?
Not from me.
Nope.
How experienced are our hikers going to be with hiking?
It'll vary. It will vary a lot. We have some who are very experienced hikers who will do very strenuous hikes, who will, could probably leave you in the dust. There are some hikers who don't really do much at all and haven't been out for a long time and are not as experienced. Most of these people, there are a few I don't know well, but most of them have been visually impaired or blind a long time. And some of the hikers have more vision than others. So this video was clearly designed for teaching you how to guide a total, somebody who's totally blind. Now, talking about turning around, that I still don't get that one.
Oh, the about face one? Or?
Yeah, I don't get that one at all. We just sort of
We weren't
zing
taught
around
that
it.
in our past
Yeah,
one. That's
yeah.
all.
Obviously, it's not one I do. But,
Victoria, I do have a question.
yes.
When we are hiking and I see something that I think is unusual, like maybe a smooth branch or a flower that's very fluffy and feels nice, is it okay for me to try to describe that and have them touch it?
Yeah, and you will, we're going to talk about this a lot, but yes. And you will find out very quickly if you're hiking with someone who is really interested in their surroundings. There'll be some people who can see that sort of thing. There are some people who really want to rack up the miles and don't want to stop. No,
Okay.
just go. And then there'll be other people that will absolutely make their day to feel fluffy flowers that they don't usually feel. And branches, even people who have a fair bit of vision will often have trouble seeing things on the ground. So branches and roots and things that stick up will definitely be a thing worth mentioning. And Edie's going to talk a little more about that as we go. Two things also that were not in the video. One is they didn't mention a thing about curb cuts. So if you're coming up, and it may, I don't know, it could happen. If you're coming up to like a parking lot where there's not a big step down, but there's a curb cut, stop at the curb cut.
wait a minute, what are you calling a curb cut?
Yeah, where there are often just a little slope down. In
Oh.
some places in the city, they're a little, like if you go from a building into a parking lot, there's often
Oh.
what's called truncated domes, like the little bumps in the sidewalk. If
Okay.
you stop at those, it helps keep the person oriented.
Hmm.
I've had to train my husband, stop at the curb, just so I know. Yeah, okay, here's where we are, because I like to know that stuff.
Hmm.
And then the other thing is that on this particular trip, and we'll talk about the hiking a little later, but there will be 8 hikers. I think it's 8, but a lot of them, 8 hikers with who are using guide dogs. The rules for guiding people with dogs are a little different. And when you're not on the trail and you're just getting to the lodge or from the bus or somewhere, you can ask them if they want to take your arm, if they want to follow you, or if they go ahead and want you to give them verbal cues like keep going, okay, you know, when it runs out, turn left. It's a slightly different guiding when somebody has a dog, because the dog is doing some of the work. So those are the things that weren't mentioned in that video that.
Vicki, do you want to share a little bit about communications, about checking on health? And
Sure. So as Edie knows, as Jean knows, as John knows, and I'm sure all of you know it in some form or other, whenever you're creating a partnership of any kind, the key to success is communication. And if you remember nothing else, communication, communication, communication. So in this case, let's just say you meet your hiker and you're getting set to go out on the trail, have a little chat. How much do you see? How much information do you want? What are your goals? To communicate, how are you fast? Are you slower? What are your needs? And then for you to also communicate your needs. One year I went out skiing with a guide, and I said at the beginning, I've got a protein bar and a couple things with me. I don't want to come back for lunch. Do you have stuff? Oh, yeah, sure. I don't think he believed me. And then we were going, I was like, okay, Vicki doesn't let us stop for lunch. But really, the important thing is to communicate so that both of you are comfortable. And so there's always a little bit of adjustment. Some of you may get a hiker that is a little bit slower than you. If the hiker is really slow and it's hard for you, then that's not a good match. And so you may want to say, this is hard for me. Let's go see if maybe I can trade with someone. The main thing also is to find out if there's anything that you need to know about the person that you're with. Sometimes if there are medical issues you might need to be aware of just in case anything happens. Not usually, but just in case. As you guide on the trail, your brain's going to get tired because you're looking at your feet, you're looking at their feet, you're looking at the surroundings, you're looking at the trail, you're trying to remember, wait, do I say, is that my left? Is that my right? Do we say, how do I describe this? So your brain is going to get a workout. And don't be shy about saying, you know what, I need a water break. I need a brain break. We all get that. And so I just can't say enough about that partnership. And don't worry if about what words you use. Like, do you say blind? Do you say low vision? Do you say visually impaired? Like, people grow up in all different situations. And they'll tell you, when we ski, sometimes you want to tell someone to turn in the track, and do you say clockwise? Do you say go to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 30 degrees? My friends trained me on 30 degrees, 20 degrees. So we come from all different backgrounds, and we certainly don't have an expectation that you're going to know exactly the right words, that you're going to get it exactly right, because we won't either. And so part of the fun is learning how to communicate with each other, how to relax. I don't, when my person is guiding me, I don't have them lock their elbow. I don't think that's comfortable for you. So I always tell people, relax your arm, I'll follow you. And so you can actually have a conversation. And sometimes you end up talking about all kinds of, one of the things I love is learning interesting things about who people are and what they do. But really, communication is the most important thing. If you're unsure, communicate about it. If you see something, well, I'm looking at this. Do you want to know about it? Do I need to say this? Like, the main thing is to trust yourself, and there's no such thing as saying too much. The person can tell you, okay, I don't need all that information. Better to go that way than not say enough.
I think you get the idea soon when you're out with somebody, whether they want more or less. I remember a young woman that I guided that wanted everything described, wanted to feel the icicles on the tree, wanted to feel different types of trees. And other people are like, let's just get up the hill to Sundance Hut. This was when I was ski guiding, but
yeah, like, let's just go.
another thing I think that's important, because Denny had an incident one time, is checking on hearing.
Yeah.
And then seeing and this person told Denny that he heard fine. And then he ran into the deck at Tahoe Donner because Denny yelled stop, because when we're skiing, you sometimes have to yell stop, sit, and the person didn't hear him. So it's a good idea to make sure some of our visually impaired hikers and skiers do have hearing issues. And sometimes it's one side. I know, Vicki, you have a side that you hear better from than the other, correct?
I don't hear at all on the right side. So fortunately for skiing, it works out because the guide is usually on the left. When I'm hiking and I'm not in between dogs and I have a dog, it's sometimes kind of an issue because it puts the guide behind me to the right. I'm like, wait, what'd you say? What? But usually there's not a lot of traffic, there's not a lot of noise, so it's usually not a problem. But I'm also very good about making sure that I hear something. So when I walk with somebody, whenever possible, I just get them on my left. Say, all right, I want you on my left so I can hear your golden tones. So I can hear your golden tones, but that goes in the category of what do we need to know about each other? I had a guide that had a bit of a hearing issue. So I needed to know that. So it goes both ways to make sure that you know what you need to know so that you can actually really enjoy yourselves out on the trail. It's not like I'm going to quiz you and things like that. And you aren't responsible for making sure that they all have sunscreen or gloves or whatever, but you can do it like you would do with any of your friends. Got all your crap, got your sunscreen, got your, wait, I forgot my, blah, 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 so you can talk as if you would talk to anybody that you're hiking with. And the other thing I want to say here is that to remember that you're the guide, you're not the help. You're the guide. That's the role you're in. And so we are about fostering independence. And so if, for instance, you're going along and somebody's boot comes untied, their hiking boot comes untied, it's up to them to tie it unless they can't. It's up to them to be responsible for their water. Sometimes, if I had my hands full doing something with the dog, my guide would say, hey, can I grab that something for you out of your pack? Yes, please. But treat it more like you would do with somebody. Just that you're in relationships that you're hiking with, rather than you're completely responsible for them. Think of it as they're as responsible for you as you are for them.
There's one little thing that you may need to remind some of our hikers that come from down in the flatland is if they have, make sure that you have a water bottle, even though you aren't responsible for their water.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring some extra water bottles and fill them. We have some extra ones that we aren't using anymore because now Vicky's an experienced hiker. Vicky has hiked up Mount Shasta, done all sorts of things. Then we'll have other people that have never been to the mountains before sometimes. So you kind of have to use your common sense to judge
Yes.
how much assistance on those kind of things you need to give. We don't want anybody getting dehydrated because they didn't bring a water bottle.
We try to tell them start hydrating 2 days before you come up to the mountains, and make sure that you have water. You know, and I always talk to the people who have dogs, even though they know I'm sorry, I'm not letting you out the door unless you have a water bowl and stuff for your dog, because
Oh,
we had
that's
a couple
true.
who didn't. We had a couple who didn't. They just didn't think about it. I'm like, nope, your dog's going to get dehydrated too. So,
Yeah, I've never been on an event. I've hiked several times and skied a lot, and I've never been on an event where I was with a dog. And so that's really important too, to make sure that we do have water for the dogs. Vicki, do you want to talk a little bit about the difference, how some people hike with their dogs? And I know you said that you go ahead sometimes of the guide and hike.
not sometimes. Oh, I go ahead, period.
Oh,
I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn.
Yeah, go ahead, Vicki.
The idea is that when people have a dog, some people use their dog for everything, some people don't. And so especially the experienced hikers are liable to say, you just walk with me, whether it's beside, whether it's a little bit behind. The dog will always be on the left. So your position would be on the right. Even if they're heeling the dog and hanging on to you, you would be on the right. And the person that you're guiding will let you know whether they want to follow you. Some people like to follow. Some people like to be a little bit ahead and to see what the dog will do. And so you might want to have a conversation about whether they have experience hiking with their dog. Because I can tell you, most of my dogs have had to learn the first time out how to deal with trees that come from the side and kind of arch down, and they're right at head level. And so that's high up for the dogs. And so they have to learn how to look up, and then that happens in a trail. Most dogs learn very quickly how to navigate a lot of the roots and rocks. Some people may still need an elbow, whether it's for balancing. Some people may still want, it depends on how much they trust their dog, how much they want to know, and how much help they need. I tend to end up just having great conversations with people, but I always made sure I did a number of hikes with the dog before I came up on a trip like this. Some people will just heel their dog, and so the dog's out for a joyride. But the main thing, again, is communication. And dogs love being out on the trails. And so they have their own instinct. And I've been out with friends where we came up on an area and my friend wanted to go one way and the dog picked a different way around stuff. And my friend said, you know what? Your dog picked a better way. You know, because the dog saw things and saw where my feet were going to go and said, no, we're not going there. And so it can be a lot of fun. And you know, most of the dogs have quite a bit of stamina, sometimes more than the people do. But it is an individual thing, which is why communication is important. So there's no one way to be. It's all going to depend on what the experience is the people want to have. I love finding out how my dog will do on the trails. So it's as much about my dog out there hiking as it is me. Other people don't. So always ask. The main thing is, if you should get matched with someone who has a dog and you aren't a dog person and are not comfortable with dogs, it's okay to say so, because you'll have a lot more fun if you're with someone with whom you're comfortable. So don't be afraid of that either. You can also request to go with somebody with a dog. That goes both ways. But mostly just you're creating then a threesome, with you, the visually impaired person, and the dog. So it's a three-way partnership.
And what,
Vicki, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you do with, how do the canes fit into the hiking on trails? And is it, that's one question. The other is it appropriate to periodically provide someone with a pole that would actually provide some support, especially when you're,
Well,
I mean, where we're going to hike around is not real hilly. I mean,
right.
you got some hills, but
Sure.
where does the cane fit in?
So some people, I don't use my cane when I hike. I actually know someone who's in the process of developing what he calls a hiking cane. I can't wait to see it. I'll be very curious. Some people use the poles, the trekking poles. I know some people who use 2 trekking poles and follow the guide. If they have enough sight, they just use the poles and follow. There are other people who like to use their cane. I find it very cumbersome on the trail, but some people may feel more secure. I happen to have trekking poles, so I always bring mine just in case I decide I want to play with one. If you have one and your hiker has never used a trekking pole, you might say, hey, you want to try one? It can, especially if you're going down and it's turning and there are steps and roots and rocks, those trekking poles can be great for a little extra balance. And if you have bad knees and you're going downhill, they can be kind of good for that too. I do find that I don't use them as much going uphill. I do much better without them going uphill. But again, that's a good question, and it's a very individual one. Some of us are happy to ditch the stick and go, I'm just going to take your arm, we're going to go.
I found one day, talking a little bit about trail conditions, like where it's steep or narrow, as I was guiding one of our experienced hikers and skiers, and we were going along a trail that was pretty easy, but all of a sudden we turned to go down to a lake on not near as formal a trail, and it was windy and very narrow and very rocky and rooty. And I had Cindy, I had a fanny pack on, and it was her idea. She took a hold of my hips and my fanny pack, because we couldn't be side by side, and walked down behind me. She didn't have a dog with her and didn't have a pole. And that worked. She was excited. It worked really well because she could feel as I was stepping down with the movement of my hips. And so that isn't something you might use on any of the trails we're on this weekend, but you don't know. Some of the more hardy hikers that get up a little higher and get to narrower trails, there's different things you can try like that when you can't walk beside each other. We're all starting out on Saturday at Tahoe Donner from out at the end of Alder Creek Road. They have their trails in the wetlands closed, but Denny and I went out and checked it out. So we'll be going out to Moondance Hut, and the hardier hikers will be going up to the higher areas, and most of that is on double track or dirt roads. So that's going to be real easy the first day. The other 2 days, we're going to kind of give people their options. We've got to get together on a call and do a little more planning. But if guides or groups of guides, and we're going to try to group you in 2 guides and 2 visually impaired hikers whenever it works. And if you decide that you know another trail you want to try and you're willing to take people in your car, because the bus will be dropping us off at Tahoe Donner and picking us up on Monday at Donner Lake at 2 2 o'clock, they'll be picking up people to go down the hill. But we hope everybody will start out at Tahoe Donner at the Adventure Center and walk down to the trails at the end of Alder Creek Road on Saturday. But on Sunday and Monday, we're going to give you guys options to go where you might want to go. A lot of you know trails, and yet by then you'll know who you're with, unless it doesn't work out and you end up trading. You'll know who you're with, and you can talk about trails you know and take them. Take your person. Obviously, none of our VIP people drive, so it's going to be up to guides if they want to transport them. The ones where the bus is going. So, and I will be around. It looks like I'm not going to have to guide, so I can be around for you to come back to me. We had not enough guides for so long, and all of a sudden we've had a couple of our VIP hikers back out, and so we have a few extra guides now. But who knows by Saturday if we'll have extra guides. At this point, I probably will be herding sheep rather than guiding, and Denny will be around too. He cannot walk long enough, my husband, without having pain in his leg because of a back problem. So he's not going to be guiding at all. He can ski longer than he can walk, but so one of us can work out maybe a trade if the match with the person you're hiking with doesn't work out. We're hoping. We tried to make matches, and they're not cast in stone yet because things keep changing, but you'll have many more options on Sunday and Monday. That Saturday we'll start on something that's pretty darn easy. There's very few obstacles on those trails. They're wide trails. They're used by the groomer for cross-country skiing in the wintertime. So the conditions should be easy on Saturday, and we'll see what you guys choose to do on Sunday and Monday.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that's good.
So, and Edie, what you're saying, easy really is the footing is much better than what we hiked down in South Lake Tahoe.
South Lake Tahoe, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have as many rocks at all.
Oh, we did one year. We went just out of Cables Lake, and that was something else. But when I did with my husband, went out of Tuolumne Meadows and up to Lake Elizabeth.
In there.
I did most of that holding on to my husband's pack.
Because it's narrow and.
Yeah, it was just narrow. And we just discovered that if I just stayed there, we could go quite fast, which was great.
Oh.
So again, it varies. When I climbed Shasta, part of the way before we roped up, what my friend who was guiding me, what we did is he took a pole in his right hand and I put my left hand on that same pole. So we had a pole between us. So he didn't have to say a lot at that point, unless the snow got really weird on my right side. Like, what? Post hole? Whoa, too late, you know. So there are all kinds of things you can do. We've kind of come up with some best practices, I guess you would call them, that make sense. But a lot of it is judgment call. Judgment call, what works for both people.
We're expecting a heat wave, as most of you know, this weekend. So it might pay if you can throw in, besides your own water, an extra water bottle in case your hiker runs out of water, because you don't want anybody dehydrated.
No. And remember, most people will be acclimatizing on Saturday. So somebody might have altitude issues too.
And I'll be sending all the guides out an email about, again, about where we're meeting and where we're starting. And I think I already mentioned Tahoe Donner. The restrooms are open there and you'll be able to fill water bottles there. So and there are maps available. I have a few maps. They look like, I don't know if you guys can see it, summer trail maps. And the Bike Works, which is in the back off the patio at Tahoe Donner Adventure Center, has maps. So that if you get there, I'm going to tell I think I've already mentioned the time in one of my emails. When you get there, if you go around and get a trail map, that will be helpful. And they were very good about showing me which trails are open and dry. We are going to have to walk a half mile from where the bus parks, 0.48, a little less than a half mile, to the gate where it starts the actual trails, because of their doing construction and having a lot of water on the trails right around the adventure center. So there you'll be walking together on a paved road, which doesn't have a lot of traffic on that last half mile of Alder Creek Road. So
That'll be a good way to work on getting your stride together, because you have to, you've got to find a way to match strides also. So, we try to think about, like, when I walk with somebody who's really tall, their stride's a lot longer than when I'm like, wait, I'm coming. And the other way around of somebody who's really short. And so sometimes that just takes a little bit of, you just walk a little bit and you find your rhythm.
And I think another thing is to remember, if you do end up and you're a hardy hiker, like I know Tom is and Jean is, and you end up, because of the number of people we had guiding and the way we have to match, you end up with a slow, more beginner hiker. I've always told myself, when I've gotten, one day I was with a beginner skier where it took us an hour and a half to get around the meadow at Tahoe Donner. And I kept telling myself, it's not about me, it's about them. I can go out and go as fast as I want anytime. And I'm not near as fast now as I was then. As I passed that 80 mark. But anyway, remembering that it's not about you, that you also get to hike other times, and we'll do our best to match abilities, but it isn't always going to be perfect. And Vicki, I like what you said the other day when we were talking about this. We are all volunteers.
Yes.
None of us are paid,
Yes.
and not pros.
Yep. Yep.
Our best.
All of us, you as guides, those of us that are working in the leadership positions and the coordinator positions, and we're all volunteers. We all have our foibles and weirdnesses and great things and strengths, and everything in between. And, part of it's just, wow, let's just see what happens when we get together.
And have fun. And,
Yeah.
and I,
Edie,
Arlene,
are we bringing lunch?
I would bring lunch the first day.
What about the other days?
It depends on who you're with and how far they're going to go. Probably you'll bring lunch.
Okay.
The hotel is going to make sandwiches for our VIPs if they, and the volunteers that are staying at the hotel. If they want to, they can order sandwiches. But there's a lot of things you can bring along if you're coming from down the hill, like several of you are, that you can ride on the bus all day when it's hot without refrigeration, granola bars and nuts and things like that, and fruit that doesn't need refrigeration. So I would bring some trail food along with you, those of you that are traveling up here.
Especially if you're with one of the hardier hikers, they're not going to want to come back for lunch. So you're going to want to take something with you.
Is the plan then to meet somewhere for lunch, or
No.
just stop on the trail somewhere?
Usually, and it depends. The beginners might want to do something a little different, but there's no organized plan for that.
Okay.
So that would be something that you would work out with your hiker.
And we're going to encourage all of the VIP hikers to at least bring something for the first day. Now, whether all of them do or not, we don't know. And then they can get sandwiches from the hotel if they want to. But there's a lot of things you can bring up with you that don't require refrigeration.
Right. But there is food at Tahoe Donner.
Yeah, their lunch there is served from 11 to 3.
Yeah,
And it's rather expensive,
but it's there.
but it is a choice that you could make. And I would as a guide, cater to your hiker, what their needs are, but you don't have to bring food for them. That's their responsibility. The extra water, though, I was just thinking of because of the heat. And
That's always a good idea. Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions before we?
Edie, I have another comment. Since we're out in the wilderness or outdoors and this and that, I think it's really key periodically to stop. And it's always been fascinating to me that the visually impaired have had such a good sense about where they are. They'll say, oh, we're out of the trees now, or we're up at the top of the ridge, and just stop for a few moments and really take in the environment.
Good idea.
And, you know, lots of times you can, you know, you stop and sometimes you can hear the road from where you are, but sometimes you get to stop for a moment and there's a lot of birds out there and this and that. And
Yeah.
you want them to really have an opportunity to enjoy being in that kind of environment as much as we can at the same time. And to, you know, to key in on those feelings periodically.
Yeah. I was cross country skiing one time. It was on the, thought I'd never forget the name of that trail.
Yeah.
And you made this left turn, and for some reason I often just didn't do that left turn right, and I fell down on the left turn. Got up and I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't fallen. And my guide was like, wait, listen. And we heard feet. And it was a cub. It was a bear cub that sort of came over, like stopped and said hi, and then we could hear its feet as it ran away. And it was just this magical, I'm like, wow, now I'm glad I fell.
I never heard of bear walking.
It was quite a
Never been
sound.
that close to a bear.
I hadn't either.
And I was going to say one other thing also is that, you know, I remember the first time I went out there hiking, which is actually a little bit, it's a different kind of challenge than when you're having somebody ski.
Mhm.
Yeah, you have to really pay attention because every step is a little different as compared to skiing. But I would, you know, encourage folks to not be afraid to try different things with the hiker, you know, in terms of what's going to work best and be most comfortable. You know, we all have a tendency, you get started doing one thing in terms of how you're oriented out there on the trail. And you don't want to be afraid to try something a little different, you know, until you can find what really works well for you.
Yep.
Yeah, sometimes because there's not an exact script as to how you can deal with the trails and the dogs and this and that. So it's okay to try some different things and see what
If
works.
you have a newer hiker, especially,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might want to encourage them, you know, just pick up your feet.
Yeah,
Sometimes you go right over those roots and things and they're no big deal at all. But if your feet are shuffling along, you'll hit every single one of them.
You need to watch the stride of the hiker, and if they tend to shuffle, you need to remind. Tom, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I'm interested in finding out if they're used to peeing in the woods.
Yeah, many of us are.
That's a good question.
Well, I will need to do that, so.
Mhm. Yep, many of us are. The beginner ones, and probably not so much, but the hardier ones, yeah, absolutely.
And when we start out Saturday, remind them that there is bathrooms open at Tahoe Donner because they're going to been riding on the bus.
Yeah, so
John, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, the other thing is sunscreen,
Yeah.
mosquito repellent,
Bring-
and I do carry a first aid kit
uh,
in case something happens out there.
So
mhm.
far around here, we haven't run into many mosquitoes yet this year, but I think it might be a good idea to carry some sunscreen and mosquito repellent because if you do run into it, it can be pretty bad. And a lot of our people from down the hill won't think of those things. That's a good idea, especially sunscreen.
Yes.
Sometimes people that live at sea level don't realize how much faster you burn at Tahoe Donner. We start out at 6,600 feet. That's over a mile high. That puts
And when my friend guided me up Mount Shasta, he was talking so much that by the end, his tongue got sunburned.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I never heard of that.
I'd never heard of that before.
No.
I think the most important thing is that you guys have a good time
Yeah.
and you walk away from it knowing this was a day where I had a good time, but it was also a day well lived. So
Okay,
if nobody has any more questions, we'll sign up. I really want to apologize for being late coming on. I came,
Not a problem.
Were you late?
I was,
Yeah, I just kind of figure things always start at the right time.
I'm usually never late for things, but having to be in Reno at 8:45 this morning and having our eyes checked and everything, and that came out fine. It was really nice to know that I don't need cataract surgery yet or don't have any,
Nice.
no macular or all those things. And when you've turned 80, that's a big relief every time you have your yearly eye exam. So, but between that and shopping, and I was shopping for hors d'oeuvres and things for our dinners, and I just sat down in a chair with a glass of wine, and Vicky, next thing the phone rings and it's Vicky, and I'm like, oh my God, I
We're waiting for host.
totally forgotten. So thank God you called. And I apologize, but remember, I am a volunteer too.
That's right. And you're cute. You're kind of cute, Edie. You're just kind of cute.
Certainly.
And I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for your willingness to volunteer, to guide, to help out. And this is for those of you who are new and those of you who are not so new. That I'm really grateful, and it really does make a difference, because this wouldn't exist without you. It wouldn't exist without us. You wouldn't have anyone to guide, but we need each other.
So, you know
Great,
what?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Edie, what time Saturday? Are you going to send out more information?
I'm going to send out more information.
Okay, okay, good.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I've got to massage the guide list a little bit because we had 2 drop out, but I'll try and send out a list of the matches, tentative matches too. But they're not cast in stone. We can change around.
Okay.
Oh, we could cast them in stone. We think we did a pretty darn good job.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you,
I'm
Edie.
going to stay here for a second, Edie, because I have a question.